Alphabet of lines refers to the different style used in drafting to indicate different features. How a line looks is a large part of what the line means. ABCs are the building blocks of language. In order to become literate, we must be able to recognize each letter, both in order and out of order, as well as the sounds connected with that letter. Once armed with that knowledge, we are well on the road to reading and literacy. Just like the alphabet of lines, if we're able to recognize each lines, both the use and features, we can understand the language of industry. It is important to study the alphabet of lines for you to understand technical drawing because the use of alphabet of lines enables us to express the features of an object clearly and accurately. Let's start. Visible line. It is a thick line used to indicate of all visible edges of an object. They should stand cut clearly in contrast to other lines so that the shape of an object is apparent to the eye. Phantom line. It is a thin line used to indicate alternate position from moving parts, adjacent position of related parts, and repetitive detail. Extension line. It is a thin line extends from the object in order to show dimension limits. Dimension line. It is a thin, solid line terminated by arrowheads at both ends to show the direction and extent of a dimension. It contains measurement. Reference line. It is a thin line used to indicate dimension or notes on a drawing. Leader line. It is a thin line used to indicate the parts of a drawing to which a note refers. Arrowheads touch the object lines while the dot rests on a surface. Hidden line. It is a thin line used to show surfaces, edges, or corners of an object that are hidden from view. Center line. It is a thin line used to show the center of holes and symmetrical features. Cutting plane line. It is a thick line used to designate where imaginary cutting took place. Section line. It is a thin line used to indicate the surface in section view imagined to have been cut along the cutting plane line. Short break line. It is a thick line used to show breaks of small objects. Long break line. It is a thin solid line with Z symbol inserted in several paces of the line used to reduce size of the view in drawing, especially when the object is very big.
In the following project, we're going to be looking at alphabet of lines. The scale is full. The plate number is 4. You're going to need the following items to work on this drawing. First, you're going to need that worksheet. You're going to need T-square, again, the worksheet, blank piece of paper, your architectural scale, 45-degree triangle, your 4H pencil, your 2H pencil. We're going to begin by creating our title block and our border, just as we have in the past. I'm going to speed through this, just so you don't have to sit here and watch what I've already done about 500 times already. Notice I did everything very light to start with, going through and darkening only the borders and the 3-inch vertical lines here. Everything else is remaining as light as possible. Now we're going to take a look at this sheet and we're going to notice that there's some dimensions for our 1-inch, our 4-inch, and then also another 1-inch on the other side. The text height and the spacing between is also 1/4 of an inch for the text height and 1/4 of an inch for the spacing between. We're going to start with a 1-inch measurement on the left-hand side. We're also going to measure 4 inches on the left-hand side. Now we're going to measure 1 inch from that right-hand border. I'm going to make a couple of light guidelines. I'm then going to start measuring my 1/4 inch down. You're going to ask me, how many times do I have to do this? Well, you're going to have to do it all the way to the bottom where it just is above your title block. That way you can fit all the lines of text in there. Now keep in mind, on your final copy, you'll be doing a couple less lines because our paper will be just that much bigger. So right here, I'm going through, drawing all my guidelines in. Notice I'm starting and stopping at my 1-inch marks. Just keeps things a lot neater overall. Wrap up our last one. Notice I was pretty consistent with my line weights. Fix your errors when you spot them. It's a good habit to get into. There, at the very top, I'm going to skip 1/4 of an inch down, and I'm going to go ahead and write in alphabet of lines. I'm going to try to center it in that area as best as I can. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start writing in border. I'll give you the quick definition of a border line. That's going to be a dark and sharp line, heavy in width. Notice I try to center it the best I can. A break line is going to be a long straight line with freehand pulse followed by a straight line repeated by a pulse again, otherwise known as a heartbeat. Notice again, I'm trying to keep the line in the middle. The heartbeat or the pulse, I'm putting that kind of split between the top and the bottom. Next is going to be a break line short. It's a freehand torn paper edge look. Draw a construction line to assist with staying in the line. So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and draw a light guideline in the middle, and then you're just going to kind of trace over that with that broken line. The next is going to be a center line. This here is going to be a long line followed by an approximate 1/8 inch space, then a 1/8 inch line, then an 1/8 inch space followed by a long line again. You then can repeat that same process several times as illustrated. Remember, you're going to be centering the objects in the space provided the best you can. Next is going to be a construction line, which is just a very light line. Again, centered. Next is going to be a cutting plane. This is similar to a center line, but now uses a long line, a 1/8 inch space, an 1/8 inch line, an 1/8 inch space, an 1/8 inch line, and then an 1/8 inch space, and then a long line. This is going to be dark, sharp, and narrow line with two small lines with arrowheads indicating the direction of sight. So basically, you're going to be drawing two arrows at either end of your line in the direction that you would be looking at the object. I'm going to go through and I'm going to show you how to draw proper arrowheads right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you quickly how to draw an arrowhead. I've started with my line. I'm going to come back approximately 3/16 of an inch and just curve. 3/16 of an inch, curve. If you want to make it look fancy, you can color in the back side of it. That's it. That's all you got to do for an arrowhead. Now, when we go ahead and we do a dimension line is going to have the following to it. It's going to be a dark, sharp line with narrow, it's going to be dark, sharp. Your arrowhead should be long and skinny. The way that I draw them is going to be that I start coming back from my end about an 1/8 of an inch, and that last 1/16 of an inch, I just curl my pencil just ever so slightly outward so that it is maybe a pencil width wider than my actual dimension line. Now, the next one we're going to do is going to be an extension line. An extension line is a dark, sharp, narrow line. Again, centered. Hidden line is going to be a dark, sharp, narrow, broken line consisting of an 1/8 inch line, an 1/8 inch space, 1/8 inch line, 1/8 inch space, and continue from start to stop. One thing to note is that you always want to have a solid mark at the beginning and the end of your object. You never want to have your object line stop with a space. So if you need to adjust that 1/8 inch marking, do it gradually towards the end so that you have what looks to be, to the eye, an 1/8 inch long line or an 1/8 inch long mark at the end. Next is going to be a leader line. A leader line is going to be a dark, sharp line that is made up of two lines, and one of those lines has an arrowhead on it. You're going to notice I'm going to draw a line closer to the bottom of my drawing area. It's going to be about 3/4 of the length of that available area. And then I'm going to draw a line at a random angle. That random angle is then going to receive an arrowhead. Remember, an arrowhead is 3/16 of an inch long and about a 1/16 of an inch wide. As you can see here, you'll see a nice long, narrow arrowhead there. I darken it in just a little bit so you can see it better on the screen. Object line is just dark, sharp, narrow line. Section line. Section lines are a little bit on the unique side because they're actually drawn at a 45-degree angle in most cases. Sometimes you will adjust the angle due to the actual object itself. Maybe the object has a lot of 45-degree angles in it, and if you put a section line in there at a 45, it could get lost. So sometimes the angle changes, but in this case, we're going to draw it at a 45-degree angle with a 1/4 inch space between each one of those marks. So you're going to notice my section line starts with just an actual ordinary line that goes about halfway through my object, and then I transition over. See if you can catch the mistake I make after I complete this. Do you see where I made my mistake? I forgot to erase that little overlap of my first 45-degree line and that long starting line. So that would be points off. Next, we're going to go ahead and we're going to finish up our title block. If you have any questions as to how to do this, make sure you talk to your instructor.